Sis, let me tell you something. Strength isn't always the loud roar that people applaud. Sometimes it's the quiet rebuilding when nobody is clapping for you, when nobody is checking in, and when nobody sees the weight you carry behind that smile. A strong woman who rebuilds herself alone doesn't start from a place of perfection. She starts from the ruins, from the ashes, from the places life broke her down. And yet what makes her strong isn't just that she survives, it's that she dares to start again. Sis, the truth about being broken is that nobody plans for it. Nobody wakes up saying, today is the day everything I trusted will fall apart. Brokenness has a way of sneaking up on you, of shaking your foundation when you thought it was solid. And for the strong woman, the breaking feels unfair because she's usually the one holding everybody else together. She's the one people lean on, the one who encourages, the one who prays over others, the one who says, we got this, even when her own heart is trembling. But then life hits her. And when it does, it's not just a crack, it feels like the whole foundation collapses. Sis, here's the part people don't tell you. The breaking is not the end. It's the beginning of a new kind of strength. See, when you get to the point where you've lost what you thought you couldn't live without, you discover what was inside of you all along. The breaking removes the layers of depending on people, layers of false security, layers of identity that were tied to things instead of truth. When God allows a breaking, it's not to destroy you, it's to introduce you to the version of yourself you've never met before. Think about it. Some of your strongest seasons didn't come when everything was smooth. They came when you had no choice but to rise. They came when you were crying yourself to sleep and still showing up in the morning. They came when you had nothing left but faith and breath. That's the breaking that births rebuilding. Sis, rebuilding doesn't start with tools in your hands. It starts with tears in your eyes. It starts when you admit, this hurt me, this broke me. I don't feel like myself anymore. And even though the world tells you to hide it, there's something powerful about acknowledging where you are. Because the moment you say, I'm broken, but I'm still here, is the moment you start gathering the pieces. And let me tell you, God does his best work with broken pieces. We think strength means never breaking, but in reality, strength means breaking and still believing. Strength means the enemy expected you to die in that place, but you decided, I'm going to rebuild even if I have to do it with nothing but faith. That's when your power starts to show. Sis, think about a house that's been torn down by a storm. At first it looks like devastation, walls crumbled, roof gone, foundation cracked. But when the builder shows up, he doesn't panic. He looks at the wreckage and says, we can work with this. That's what God does with you. He looks at the ruins of your heart, your dreams, your life, and says, daughter, this is not the end. I can build something stronger here. But here's the truth. The breaking forces you to let go of what you thought you needed. Some of us are trying to carry old bricks into a new structure, but they don't fit anymore. That relationship you lost, that season that ended, that friendship that turned away, stop trying to use broken bricks to build something new. The breaking is painful, but it's also cleansing. It clears away what cannot sustain the new version of you. Sis, the breaking also births humility. It's easy to feel strong when you've never been tested. But when life drops you to your knees, you learn how to depend on God in a way you never did before. You stop pretending you can do it all, and you start trusting that he can do it through you. And in that humility, a new confidence is born. Not confidence in what you have, but confidence in who you are becoming through him. And the beauty of it is this, the breaking births vision. When the old is gone, you can finally see the blueprint God has been waiting to reveal. You thought you were losing everything, but really you were making space for what's next. The breaking births the rebuilding because it shows you that you are not defined by what crumbled. You are defined by what you dare to build again. Sis, silence is one of the hardest places for a strong woman to live in. When you've been the voice for everyone else, when you've been the one who shows up with advice, encouragement, and prayers, stepping into silence feels unnatural. It feels like you've been muted. But the truth is, silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. Silence is the soil where strength grows. It's where God does his deepest work because the noise has been stripped away. Sis, silence exposes what distractions used to cover. When the phone stops ringing, when the invitations stop coming, when the applause dies down, you're left with you. And at first that can feel lonely, almost unbearable. But it's in that stillness where you meet the core of who you are. Silence removes the filters, the performances, the roles you had to play for others, and it forces you to deal with your raw self. That's where true rebuilding begins, because you can't rebuild from a lie, you can only rebuild from truth. Think about it. When a seed is planted in the ground, nobody sees it. It's buried in darkness, covered by dirt, and silent to the world above. But beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Roots are forming, foundations are strengthening, growth is preparing. The seed doesn't need validation while it's underground. It doesn't need claps or recognition. Its silence is its strength. And sis, that's exactly what God is doing in you. He buries you in silence not to forget you, but to establish roots so deep that no storm can uproot you. Sis, silence also teaches you how to hear again, because let's be real, we live in a world where everybody has an opinion about your life. People will tell you what you should do, who you should be, and where you should go. Their voices get so loud that you forget the sound of God's whisper, but in silence the distractions fade. In silence you start to recognize his voice again, the still, small voice that leads you, comforts you, and gives you peace. You realize that his whisper carries more power than the loudest applause. And I know, sis, silence can feel like abandonment. You may be asking, God, where are you? Why does it feel like you've pulled back when I need you most? But silence isn't his absence, it's his intimacy. Sometimes God loves you too much to let other voices guide your steps. So he pulls you into a season where it's just you and him. It's in that secret place where he reminds you that your strength doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being chosen. Sis, silence is where you discover your hidden resilience. When nobody checks in, you learn how to check in on yourself. When nobody claps, you learn how to affirm yourself. When nobody shows up, you learn how to show up for yourself. And as hard as it is, that's how you become unshakable. Because when your strength is forged in silence, it doesn't need validation to survive. It becomes an inner fire that can't be blown out by opinions, criticism, or rejection. Silence also reveals the difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness says you're lacking. Being alone says you're learning. Loneliness drains you. Being alone develops you. And sis, when you embrace the silence, you realize that being alone is not a curse, it's a classroom. God uses it to teach you what noise kept you from seeing your worth, your calling, your identity. And here's the secret. Silence gives you power over your enemies, because people expect you to react, to defend yourself, to explain, to prove. But when you stay silent, you starve their ego and you protect your energy. You stop bleeding your strength in battles that don't deserve your sword. Silence becomes your shield, your sanctuary, and your strategy. Sis, the silence is not empty, it's full of healing, full of clarity, full of unseen transformation. It may not look like movement, but it is progress. Every tear you cry in silence is watering the seed of who you are becoming. Every prayer whispered in silence is building the foundation of your next level. Every moment of silence is a divine setup for your loud breakthrough. Sis, refusing to let your scars define your story is one of the most powerful choices a strong woman can ever make. Because let's be honest, life leaves marks. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment, every loss, it all leaves something behind. And sometimes those scars scream louder than your faith. Sometimes when you look in the mirror, all you can see is what went wrong. But sis, the scar is not the story. The scar is just the evidence that you survived what tried to destroy you. Scars are tricky because they carry memory. You can touch them and instantly be reminded of the pain, the night you thought you wouldn't make it, the season that almost broke you. But here's the thing, a scar is healed skin. It's no longer an open wound. It no longer bleeds. It no longer holds the power to kill you. The enemy wants you to confuse your scar with your identity. But sis, you are not what happened to you. You are not the betrayal. You are not the rejection. You are not the abandonment. You are not the failure. You are the woman who healed. Sis, think about Jesus. After the resurrection, he could have come back with no evidence of the cross, no reminder of what he endured, but instead he showed his scars to Thomas. Why? Because his scars weren't a sign of defeat, they were proof of victory. They said, yes, I was wounded. Yes, I went through hell, but look, I made it through and I'm still standing. That's what your scars are meant to do. Not to define you, but to testify for you. To tell the world, I've been through something, but I didn't stay there. Sis, the problem is when we start living from the scar instead of living from the healing. When you let the scar dictate your decisions, you end up protecting the wound instead of pursuing your purpose. You stay guarded, suspicious, afraid to love again, afraid to trust again, afraid to dream again. And in doing so, you let the scar imprison you. But sis, scars are not prisons, they are reminders of freedom. Refusing to let your scars define your story means shifting your perspective. Instead of saying, look what I lost, you start declaring, look what I survived. Instead of seeing yourself as damaged, you see yourself as refined. The fire didn't consume you, it purified you. The betrayal didn't end you, it revealed who was real. The failure didn't break you, it built wisdom inside of you that no book could teach. Sis, scars can either make you bitter or make you better, and that choice is yours. People will try to label you by your scars. They'll say, that's the divorced woman. That's the woman who failed. That's the one who was abandoned. That's the one who struggled. But you have to decide, that's not my name. My scars may be part of my journey, but they are not my identity. And here's the power of it. When you stop hiding your scars, you start helping others heal theirs. Somebody is waiting to see that you made it. Somebody needs to know that it's possible to be wounded and still rise. That's why the enemy wants you to stay ashamed of your scars, because he knows your testimony has power. But sis, when you boldly say, yes, I've been hurt, but I'm not defined by it, you give other women permission to heal too. Your scars are not the end of your story. They're the punctuation that says something happened, but the sentence is not over. And when you hand your scars over to God, he turns them into a stage for his glory. He takes what was meant to break you and uses it to build someone else. He takes your scars and transforms them into signposts of his faithfulness. Sis, scars don't define the strong woman, they refine her. They remind her that she's not fragile, she's resilient. They remind her that pain did not destroy her, it developed her. And most of all, they remind her that every chapter that left a scar was still a part of the story God is writing, a story where victory outweighs defeat, healing overshadows hurt, and faith speaks louder than pain. Sis, choosing purpose over pain is one of the most courageous decisions you'll ever make, because pain has a voice that demands to be heard. Pain will tell you, stay here, don't move, don't trust, don't dream, don't open yourself again. Pain will try to convince you that your life is over where it hurt you, but purpose whispers through the cracks of your broken heart. This is not the end. There is more in you. There is life after this. There is destiny beyond this. And the strong woman chooses to believe the whisper of purpose over the scream of pain. Sis, the thing about pain is that it's familiar. It feels safe to stay in it because you already know how it feels. You know the tears. You know the disappointment. You know the ache. But purpose requires you to step into the unknown. Purpose calls you to rise even when you don't have all the answers. Purpose says, trust me enough to move forward, even if your knees are shaking. Pain will always try to define your pace. It will tell you to move slowly, to guard yourself excessively, to never risk again. But purpose is the reason you can take another step. Purpose tells you you may have cried, but you still carry a calling. You may have lost something, but you haven't lost yourself. You may have been broken, but you are still chosen. Sis, when you choose purpose over pain, you stop living in reaction to what happened and start living in response to what God is doing. Pain is reactive. It keeps you stuck in the past, replaying scenes, analyzing what went wrong, questioning why it happened. But purpose is proactive. It pulls you forward, asking, what can this teach me? How can this grow me? Who can I become because of this? That's how a strong woman transforms her story, not by pretending pain didn't happen, but by refusing to let it have the final word. Think about Joseph in the Bible. His brothers betrayed him, threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. He had every reason to let pain define his life. He could have grown bitter, angry, hardened, but instead he chose purpose. He understood that what was meant for evil, God was turning for good. Sis, that's the power of choosing purpose over pain. It's declaring, this hurt me, but it won't stop me. This broke me, but it won't bury me. I will not die here because my destiny is too great. Sis, choosing purpose over pain is also about what you feed. Pain loves attention. The more you replay it, the stronger it gets. The more you feed it, the deeper it grows roots. But purpose needs attention too. You water it by speaking life, by surrounding yourself with vision, by dreaming again, by praying even when you don't feel like it. Every time you choose to feed purpose instead of pain, you weaken pain's grip on you. And let's be real, sometimes purpose feels heavier than pain, because pain lets you sit still, but purpose requires action. Pain keeps you numb, but purpose demands healing. Pain wants you to stay comfortable, but purpose asks you to grow. It's not easy, but sis, growth never is. The weight of purpose might stretch you, but it will never crush you. It will build you into the woman you were always meant to be. Sis, when you choose purpose, you start seeing pain differently. Instead of asking, why me? You begin to ask, what now? Instead of saying, this ruined me, you say, this refined me. Instead of holding on to bitterness, you hold on to lessons. Pain will always be a chapter in your story, but purpose makes sure it's not the title of your book. And here's the beauty: when you live from purpose, pain becomes a tool. The very thing that tried to destroy you becomes the thing God uses to elevate you. That heartbreak builds compassion. That loss builds wisdom. That betrayal builds discernment. That failure builds resilience. Pain becomes the training ground for your purpose, and when you walk in it, you realize nothing you went through was wasted. Sis, choosing purpose over pain doesn't mean you don't feel the hurt. It means you don't give the hurt authority over your destiny. It means that even with tears in your eyes, you still move forward. Even with questions in your heart, you still trust God's hand. Even with scars on your soul, you still say, I'm not finished yet. Because at the end of the day, pain reminds you that you're human, but purpose reminds you that you're chosen. Sis, the beauty of becoming her own support system is that it teaches a woman how to stand when nobody else shows up to hold her hand. Because let's be real, there are seasons in life where the people you thought would cheer for you grow silent, where the ones who said, I've got you, disappear when the weight gets heavy. And for a strong woman, that silence can feel like betrayal, but it's really an invitation. An invitation to discover that the strength you've been pouring into everybody else is the same strength God planted in you to carry yourself. Sis, support systems are beautiful when they're healthy, but dangerous when they're your crutch. If you lean too hard on others, you forget that God already gave you the capacity to hold yourself up. When you become your own support system, you're not saying you don't need people. You're saying you won't collapse if they leave. You're saying your survival isn't tied to who stays or who walks away. The beauty of it is that being your own support system doesn't start with external action. It starts internally. It starts when you stop waiting for validation from others and start affirming yourself. It's in the mirror when you say, sis, I'm proud of you. I see the fight in you. I know it's been hard, but you're still standing. Those words matter because when you don't have anyone speaking life into you, you have to learn how to speak it over yourself. Sis, think about David in the Bible. He had moments when people turned on him, when the crowd that once sang his praises wanted to see him fall. And the scripture says David encouraged himself in the Lord. He didn't wait for someone else to remind him of his strength. He reminded himself. He became his own support system by drawing from the source that never leaves, never fails, never walks away. That's the secret. When you become your own support system, it's not just about depending on yourself. It's about depending on God within you. Sis, becoming your own support system also means learning to set boundaries. Because part of supporting yourself is protecting your peace. You can't be the woman who pours endlessly into everybody else and never fills herself back up. That's not strength. That's self-neglect. The strong woman who rebuilds herself alone understands that rest is part of support. Saying no is part of support. Choosing her mental and emotional health is part of support. She doesn't feel guilty for preserving her strength because she knows her purpose requires it. And here's the thing, when you learn how to support yourself, you stop being desperate for acceptance. You stop settling for half love, half effort, half presence. Because you already know how to stand alone. You don't chase people who make you feel like you're too much or not enough. You don't beg for the table when you already know you can build your own. Sis, that's the beauty. It's freedom. Freedom from performing, freedom from begging, freedom from shrinking yourself to fit in places you've outgrown. Sis, being your own support system doesn't mean you won't ever feel tired. It means when you're tired, you know how to rest instead of quit. It means when you're discouraged, you know how to remind yourself of the victories you've already survived. It means when you want to give up, you know how to anchor yourself in God's promises until strength rises again. You learn how to carry your own weight without crumbling under it. And let's not miss this. When you become your own support system, you also become an example. Other women who feel unseen, abandoned, or overlooked look at you and realize if she can rise without a crowd, so can I. If she can stand after being broken, so can I. You start to inspire not because you're perfect, but because you show the beauty of resilience. You show that support doesn't have to come from 1,000 hands. It can come from a heart that refuses to quit and a God who refuses to let you fall. Sis, the beauty of becoming your own support system is not that you'll never need anybody, but that you'll never depend on anybody more than you depend on the God inside you. It's the realization that even if the crowd leaves, the calling stays. Even if the applause stops, the anointing remains. Even if you have to walk through the fire alone, you carry the kind of strength that ensures you won't walk out the same. You'll walk out stronger, wiser, and unshakable. Sis, rising with a vision beyond the ruins is what separates the woman who survives from the woman who rebuilds. Because surviving says, I made it out alive, but rebuilding says, I'm going to live again. And when everything has crumbled around you, dreams, relationships, stability, it's easy to stand in the middle of the wreckage and feel like there's no future beyond what you see. But sis, vision is the ability to look at ashes and see beauty, to stand in ruins and see restoration, to stare at what's broken and still imagine what's possible. Sis, vision is not denial. It doesn't ignore the pain. It doesn't pretend the loss didn't happen. It doesn't cover up the cracks. Vision acknowledges the ruins but refuses to worship them. Vision says, yes, it fell apart, but this is not where my story ends. I'm going to rise and I'm going to see something greater than what fell. That's what makes a strong woman unshakable. Her ability to see past what is and hold on to what will be. Think about Nehemiah in the Bible. He walked into a city with broken walls, burned gates, and a community drowning in discouragement. Anybody else would have said, it's too late, it's too far gone. But Nehemiah carried vision. He didn't just see ruins, he saw rebuilding. He didn't just see brokenness, he saw restoration. And because of that vision, he had the courage to pick up stones and rebuild what others thought could never stand again. Sis, that's you. You are the Nehemiah of your own life. You're standing among ruins, but God has placed vision in your heart to build something stronger than what was lost. Sis, vision beyond the ruins also requires faith. Because let's be real, ruins are loud. They shout, you failed. They whisper, you'll never recover. They echo, this is as far as you'll go. And if you let those voices win, you'll stay stuck, circling around rubble instead of building again. But faith allows you to see what eyes cannot. Faith allows you to say, I believe God can still make something out of this mess. Faith gives you permission to dream again, even when all you've known lately is disappointment. Sis, rising with a vision beyond the ruins means shifting your language. Because the way you speak determines the way you see. If all you say is, it's over, it's too late, it'll never change, then that's all you'll see. But when you start declaring, this is temporary, better is ahead, greater is coming, you start aligning your vision with God's promises. Words become bricks, and every declaration of faith becomes a step toward rebuilding. And here's the beauty. When you have vision beyond the ruins, you stop comparing your journey to anyone else's. Because sis, ruins are personal. What you lost, what you endured, what you survived, it's uniquely yours. And so is the vision God has for your rebuilding. You don't have to measure your progress against someone else's palace. Your ruins will not look like theirs, and neither will your restoration. But what God is building through you will be just as powerful, just as purposeful, just as necessary. Sis, vision is what keeps you moving when everything else says, quit. It's what wakes you up in the morning with fire in your bones, even when you're still surrounded by brokenness. It's what allows you to pick up one stone at a time and trust that eventually walls will rise again. Because vision is not about speed, it's about persistence. It's about trusting that every small step is part of a bigger picture you can't fully see yet. And don't miss this, sis. Vision attracts provision. When Nehemiah carried vision, resources showed up, helpers showed up, strength showed up. That's what happens when you dare to see beyond the ruins. Heaven responds. God begins to align opportunities, relationships, and strength you didn't even know you had, because he always funds what he's building through you. Sis, rising with a vision beyond the ruins means refusing to let devastation have the final word. It means choosing to see beauty where others only see ashes. It means declaring that your life is not defined by what fell apart, but by what God is raising up in its place. The strong woman doesn't just stand in ruins. She dares to imagine, she dares to build, and she dares to rise with vision that carries her far beyond the rubble into her God-ordained restoration.